If you've ever been told that protecting your own child makes you dramatic, stay until the end of this video, because what happened after that sentence is something I never saw coming, not from my parents, not from my sister, and definitely not from a 7-year-old who ended up braver than every adult in this story combined. My name doesn't matter. What matters is my daughter, Lily. She was 7 years old the week this all happened, and by the end of it, my entire family tree got a very necessary trim. Let me set the scene. I'm a single mom. Her father's been out of the picture since she was 2. That's a different video for a different day. So, for the last 5 years, it's been me and Lily against the world. I work full-time at a logistics company, 45 minutes each way, and on the weeks my schedule gets brutal, Lily stays with my parents. My mom, retired. My dad, semi-retired, which really just means he golfs 4 days a week and complains about gas prices the other 3. It seemed like a good arrangement. Free childcare, grandparents who supposedly loved spending time with her, and a kid who, at least on paper, was thriving. Except she wasn't. It started small. Lily came home from a weekend at my parents' house with a bruise on her upper arm, right where a hand would grip if someone yanked her a little too hard. I asked her about it. She shrugged and said she fell off the porch steps. Kids fall. I let it go. 2 weeks later, another one. This time on her thigh, yellow-green, healing, meaning it had already been there a few days before I even saw it. I asked again. She got quiet, the kind of quiet a 7-year-old gets when she's protecting someone, not when she's actually fine. That quiet is what did it. That's the part that kept me up that night, scrolling through old photos of her, zooming in on birthday party pictures, trying to figure out if I'd missed something for months. The next weekend, I picked her up early. Walked into my parents' living room without calling first, which I never do because my mother treats an unannounced visit like a home invasion. Lily was on the couch in shorts, and there it was, a fresh bruise on her hip, dark purple, finger-shaped. Not a fell down the stairs bruise. Someone grabbed her hard enough to leave a mark bruise. I didn't yell. I didn't cry, not yet. I just knelt down in front of my daughter and asked her, as calm as I could manage, "Baby, who did this?" And she looked past me, not at me, past me, toward the kitchen, where my sister Dana was standing in the doorway with a coffee mug frozen halfway to her mouth. Dana. My younger sister. 31 years old, no kids of her own, living back at my parents' house temporarily for the last 3 years after her second failed relationship. Dana, who my mother has spent my entire life excusing, protecting, and financially rescuing while telling me to be the bigger person every single time Dana did something that wasn't okay. Lily didn't say a word. She didn't have to. The look on her face said everything. Fear. Not, I'm in trouble fear. I don't want her to be mad at me fear. I stood up slowly and asked my mother, who had just walked in from the garage, to explain why my daughter had a hand-shaped bruise on her body and why she looked terrified of my sister. And that's when my mother, without even glancing at the bruise, without even blinking, said the sentence that's now living rent-free in my skull forever. Don't make this about me. My 7-year-old had a mark on her body shaped like an adult hand, and somehow, in my mother's mind, my concern for my own child was an act of main character syndrome. I want you to sit with that phrase for a second, because it tells you everything about how my family operates. Anything that centers me, my feelings, my daughter, my boundaries, gets reframed as me making it about myself. As if being a mother who notices bruises on her kid is some kind of narcissistic performance instead of, basic parenting. My dad, God bless his conflict-avoidant soul, just stood there stirring his coffee like the discussion was about weather patterns. When I looked at him, hoping for literally anything, a raised eyebrow. Hey, that does look bad, he said. Your mother's right. Don't get yourself all worked up. All worked up. Over a bruise shaped like fingers on my kid's hip. I picked Lily up, got her shoes on, and left without another word, because I've learned over 30-plus years that arguing with my parents in the heat of the moment is like arguing with a brick wall that also somehow finds a way to make itself the victim. That night, after Lily fell asleep, I photographed the bruise from 3 angles with a ruler next to it for scale, something I'd seen recommended once in a parenting forum, never imagining I'd actually need to use it. I wrote down the date, the time I noticed it, and everything Lily had told me, word for word, in a notes app. I didn't know yet what I was going to do with this information. I just knew that somewhere deep in my gut, the mom alarm was blaring, and for once in my life, I decided to actually listen to it instead of smoothing things over for the sake of family peace. The next morning, I sat Lily down over pancakes, the good kind, chocolate chip, the ones I only make when I need her guard fully down, and I asked her gently, "No pressure, sweetheart, can you tell me what happened with Aunt Dana?" And it all came out. Apparently, for the last 4 months, whenever I dropped Lily off, my mother would run errands and leave Dana in charge for 2, sometimes 3 hours at a time. Dana, who did not want to be babysitting her niece, who had things to do, who resented every single minute of it, and who, according to Lily, gets really mad and grabs me hard when I don't listen fast enough. Lily told me Dana would grip her arm to pull her off the iPad, grip her leg to make her sit still during Dana's phone calls. Once, when Lily spilled juice, Dana grabbed her by the hip and physically moved her out of the kitchen so hard it left a mark, then told her, "Don't tell your mom, or she'll never let you come back and see Grandma." There it was. The threat. The exact reason my daughter went quiet every single time I asked. I want to be honest with you, in that moment, sitting across from my kid at our kitchen table, watching her explain grown-up cruelty in the small, matter-of-fact way that only children can, something in me went cold and clear at the same time. All the years of biting my tongue with my family, all the times I let my mother's favoritism toward Dana slide because she's going through a hard time. All the birthdays where Dana showed up late and got praised for showing up at all while I got criticized for showing up early and making everyone feel bad by comparison, all of it clicked into a single, undeniable picture. My family had a pattern of protecting Dana's feelings over protecting children. And now that pattern had left bruises on my daughter's body. I did 3 things that week, and each one detonated a different corner of my family. First, I called Lily's pediatrician and got her in for an actual visit, not just to document the bruising, but to have a mandated reporter's professional opinion on record. The doctor took one look, asked Lily a few careful questions alone with a nurse present, and confirmed what I already knew. This wasn't accidental bruising from normal kid activity. It was consistent with being grabbed forcefully and repeatedly. The visit and the documentation that came with it was now part of an official medical record. Not because I wanted to destroy anyone. Because I needed proof that this wasn't me being dramatic. Second, I told my parents, calmly and in writing over text so there could be no "that's not what you said" later, that Lily would no longer be spending unsupervised time at their house under any circumstances, and that Dana was not to be alone with her. Period. Full stop. No exceptions. My mother's response came in about 4 minutes. 4 minutes to type out an essay defending my sister, an essay that didn't contain a single word asking how Lily was doing. It said, and I'm paraphrasing only slightly, that I was overreacting, that Dana was dealing with a lot, that I was punishing the whole family for one misunderstanding, and that I needed to stop being so sensitive and think about what this does to Dana's mental health. Dana's mental health. Not my daughter's bruises. Dana's mental health. Third, and this is the part that actually changed everything, I stopped protecting the family narrative in front of the rest of the family. See, for years, there had been an unspoken rule in my house growing up. Whatever happens inside the family stays soft focus outside the family. Dana gets a pass, I get the blame, and everyone smiles for photos at Thanksgiving. I had spent my whole adult life being the difficult daughter simply because I was the one who occasionally said, out loud, that something wasn't okay. Not this time. My aunt, my mom's sister, someone I'd always been close to, called me a few days later to check in, which I now understand was code for "your mother sent me to talk you off the ledge." I told her exactly what happened. I described the bruise. I read her, word for word, the text my mother had sent defending Dana's mental health over my daughter's physical safety. I sent her the photos. There was a long silence on the phone, and then my aunt said something I will never forget. Your mother did the exact same thing to you when you were little, you know. She just never had a Dana to blame it on. That single sentence rearranged 20 years of memories in about 10 seconds. Suddenly, I remembered being 9 years old and getting yelled at by my mother for crying about my grandmother, who used to pinch my arm playfully until it bruised, and being told the exact same phrase, nearly word for word, "Don't make this about you." I remember dozens of moments where my feelings were treated as an inconvenience, a disruption to the family's preferred storyline, where I learned early that being hurt was somehow ruder than being the one who hurt someone. I wasn't just protecting my daughter from Dana. I was breaking a pattern that had been running in this family for at least 2 generations before Lily was even born. My aunt didn't just sympathize, she acted. She called my mother directly and told her, in no uncertain terms, that if anything like this ever happened again, she would personally be the one calling Child Protective Services herself. Family loyalty be damned. She also told my mother something that apparently landed harder than anything I had said, that if this got out to the rest of the extended family, the cousins, the family group chat, the annual reunion crowd, nobody was going to side with Dana over a 7-year-old with a hand-shaped bruise on her hip. That threat of exposure did something my calm, documented, medically verified concerns hadn't managed to do. It cracked the wall. 2 days later, my father called me. Not my mother. My father, who I mentioned earlier had the emotional range of a houseplant during the original confrontation. He apologized. Actually apologized, using the words, "I'm sorry, and you were right" in the same sentence, which might be a first in recorded family history. He told me that after my aunt's call, he'd sat my mother down and asked her point-blank whether she'd rather lose her granddaughter or admit her other daughter needed real help. He said my mother cried, not because she was sorry at first, but because she was furious at being confronted. But somewhere in that fight, something shifted, because 48 hours later, my mother sent Dana to stay with a family friend for a little while to get back on her feet, and Dana, for what it's worth, finally started actual therapy. Something I'd suggested for years and been told was not necessary. She's fine. You're always trying to diagnose people. My mother called me after that. It wasn't a perfect apology. My mother doesn't do perfect apologies. I don't think she's capable of the version I actually needed. But she did say, quietly, that she should have looked at the bruise before she looked at Dana's feelings, and that she was sorry Lily had been scared to tell me. It wasn't everything. But it was more than I'd gotten in 30 years of being told my feelings were an inconvenience. Here's the part of the story I actually want you to remember, though, because it's not about the apology. It's about what happened with Lily afterward. About a week after everything settled, Dana out of the house, my parents finally, genuinely on board with supervised visits only, actual boundaries actually being respected for once. I was tucking Lily into bed, and she asked me, out of nowhere, "Mommy, are you mad I didn't tell you sooner?" And I told her the truest thing I have ever told my daughter. I said, "No, baby. I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at the grown-ups who made you feel like you had to keep a secret to protect them instead of feeling safe enough to protect yourself." She thought about that for a second, in that serious little way 7-year-olds have when they're actually listening, and she said, "So it's okay to tell you things even if someone says not to?" Always, I told her. Every single time. No matter what anyone says. That's the moment I actually won this whole thing. Not the apology text. Not my aunt's phone call. Not even Dana finally getting help she'd needed for years. It was my daughter understanding, at 7 years old, that her voice matters more than someone else's comfort, a lesson it took me 3 decades and a bruise on my own child's body to finally learn for myself. My family is still healing, if you can call it that. We're not the picture-perfect Thanksgiving table anymore, and, honestly, I don't think we ever really were. We were just better at pretending. My mother and I are talking again, carefully, with actual boundaries now instead of the old unspoken rules. Dana and I aren't close, but she reached out last month on her own to apologize to Lily directly, supervised, on her own initiative, which is more accountability than I ever expected from her. And Lily? Lily is just a kid again. No more quiet. No more looking past me instead of at me. She bruises like normal 7-year-olds do now, from soccer, from falling off her bike, from being a wild, loud, joyfully clumsy little kid, and every single time I ask her what happened, and every single time she tells me immediately, without hesitation, without fear. Because here's what I've learned, and what I hope every parent watching this takes with them. When your child goes quiet instead of answering a simple question, that silence is data. When someone in your family tells you that noticing your own kid's pain is making it about yourself, that is not a boundary you're crossing. That is a boundary they're trying to build to protect themselves. And when you have to choose between keeping the peace and keeping your child safe, that is not actually a choice at all. My parents saw my daughter's bruises and told me not to make it about myself. So I made it about her instead. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever had to choose your child over your family's comfort, I want to hear about it. And if you're the parent who's been told you're too sensitive for simply protecting your kid, you're not. You never were. Trust that alarm bell. It's usually right.